I went too deep into the Paris Catacombs. I'd always been obsessed with the Paris Catacombs. Not just the history, not just the bones, but the idea of what it would feel like to get lost down there. The idea of being underground, surrounded by the dead, in a place that wasn't meant for visitors. Most people visited the catacombs during the day through the guided tours, but I didn't want a sanitized experience. I wanted the real thing, the tunnels that weren't on any map, the passages that twisted and turned beyond anyone's knowledge. I slipped past the barriers just as night fell. The street lamps of Paris were fading behind me, leaving me in shadows. I carried a small flashlight, a backpack with a few essentials, and a recorder. I told myself I'd be careful. Just a few tunnels, a little adventure. The first hour was thrilling. The walls of skulls were perfect, orderly, stacked in neat columns. Femurs lined the edges, and the air smelled of cold stone and old decay. I whispered into my recorder, laughing nervously as my own voice echoed back at me. Every step felt surreal. I would pause sometimes and press my hand to the walls, feeling the weight of centuries pressing in, feeling the bones stare silently back at me. I wandered further, deeper into passages that weren't on any map or marked path, completely venturing into the unknown. The air grew colder, heavier, and damp. My flashlight flickered across walls covered in strange markings, numbers, symbols, and crude drawings that twisted unnaturally in the dim light. Some looked like warnings, others I couldn't decipher, but they made my stomach tighten and my pulse quicken. Then I saw something that froze me in place. In a small side chamber, a circle had been drawn on the floor with what looked like ash or dust. Candles, long burned down to stubs, surrounded it, and bones were arranged in unnatural patterns, arms crossed over chests, skulls tilted toward the center. The smell of decay was stronger here, almost pungent, and a faint humming seemed to vibrate through the stone floor beneath me. I stepped closer, curiosity warring with fear. Then I noticed a figure, barely more than a shadow, hovering at the edge of the circle. Pale, flickering, as if it were made of smoke. It didn't move like a person, but it regarded me with something in its presence that felt like warning. "Go back," a whisper hissed, echoing in the chamber even though no one was there. The voice was faint, trembling, desperate. "Go back, before it's too late." I spun around, swinging my flashlight wildly. Nothing, just walls lined with bones, cold and silent. But when I looked back at the chamber, the shadow was gone. Only the eerie arrangement of bones remained, and the feeling that I wasn't alone. Shaken, I continued down a narrow passage. The air felt thicker here, the darkness deeper. Dusty handprints appeared along the walls, some fresh, some long faded, as though someone, or something, had brushed against the stone. I could hear faint murmurs echoing just beyond the edges of my light, voices whispering words I couldn't understand, urgent and pleading. Around another corner, I caught movement, a figure standing just at the limit of my flashlight's beam, tall, thin, pale, with eyes that glimmered unnaturally in the shadows. He lifted a hand slowly, beckoning or warning me. I blinked, and he was gone. But the sense of being watched didn't leave. I noticed now that the markings on the walls seemed almost alive. Shapes writhed when I wasn't looking directly at them, symbols glowing faintly, as if warning me or tempting me deeper. Every corridor I took seemed to twist, lengthening unnaturally, so that even familiar turns felt alien. Somewhere in the distance, a faint chanting began, low, muffled, and rhythmic, echoing through tunnels I had never noticed before. My flashlight trembled in my hands as dread built, pressing in from all sides. Shadows reached across the walls, stretching unnaturally, crawling toward me like long fingers. And then, finally, I realized I couldn't tell one passage from another. Every turn looked the same, every corridor mirrored the last. My bearings were gone. The faint whispers, the shadows, the symbols, all combined to erase my sense of direction. I was utterly, hopelessly lost. I knew the tunnels I had just passed. I remembered the turns, but now nothing looked familiar. I spun around, trying to retrace my steps, but each corridor led me deeper into the maze. Panic bubbled in my chest. My flashlight flickered. My phone had no signal. I realized then that I wasn't just exploring anymore. I was trapped. That's when I saw him. At first, he was just a shadow at the edge of my light. Tall, thin, dressed in a uniform that looked old-fashioned, like one a Paris Catacombs guide might have worn decades ago. His eyes were hollow, pale, almost sunken, yet they glimmered with a strange life. "Lost?" he asked softly. His voice was quiet but carried through the tunnels like it belonged there. I hesitated. "Yeah, I think I took a wrong turn." He smiled faintly, tilting his head. "I can help you. Follow me." I should have said no. I should have turned around and run. But something in his presence was magnetic. There was a sadness in his posture, a melancholy that made him seem harmless. We walked together, and the tunnels became stranger, narrower, claustrophobic. The walls themselves seemed to shift slightly, so that every turn I thought I recognized led me somewhere unfamiliar. My flashlight flickered constantly, and the shadows it cast twisted like living things across the bone-lined walls. "Why are you helping me?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He sighed, almost mournfully. "I know what it's like to be trapped down here. I've been here a long time, far too long." "Who are you?" I asked. "I mean, really?" He paused, then spoke, and I could almost hear the weight of his confession pressing down in the air around us. "I was a guide once," he said, voice soft, almost sorrowful. "A real one. Tourists, thrill seekers, people who thought they could handle the dark. I led them, deep, farther than anyone should go, and once they trusted me, I took from them." I froze. "Took?" "Everything they valued," he said, a faint smile curling his lips. "Wallets, watches, sometimes even their belongings, their memories. Once I was gone, they were just another story, forgotten in the labyrinth." The chill ran up my spine. His face was calm, almost kind, but there was malice in his tone, and beneath that malice, patience, endless patience. "They called me missing once," he said quietly, "but I never truly left. This place, it keeps you, and those who come after me. They think I'm guiding them to safety, but I guide them somewhere else entirely." We continued walking. The tunnels grew narrower. I could barely breathe. I felt the walls pressing closer, the air growing colder, heavier. I stumbled over uneven stones, and somewhere in the distance I thought I heard faint whispers. Not my imagination. Real voices, murmuring, calling my name. "Almost there," he said, his tone soothing, almost coaxing. "Just a little farther and you'll be safe." But I wasn't safe. The tunnels began to twist unnaturally. Corridors I had already walked through appeared again, but distorted. The bones lining the walls seemed to leer, skulls staring with hollow eyes that reflected my flashlight like mirrors. Shadows moved in the corners of my vision. I tried to retrace my steps, but the passages reshaped themselves around me. "Why are you doing this?" I demanded, my voice shaking. He appeared beside me, calm as ever, smiling faintly. "I don't need your things anymore. This time I take something else, something far more valuable." Panic clawed at me as I realized what had happened. My thoughts were sluggish, my reflexes dulled. My instincts screamed at me to run, to escape, but I couldn't. My ability to leave, he had taken it. "I've taken many things before," he said softly, "but this is my favorite. Curiosity, hope, the will to survive. I take it, and they stay. forever. Hours or days passed. Time became meaningless. Every corridor led me back to the same chamber, lined with skulls that seemed to watch, whispering the stories of his past victims. Shapes moved at the edges of my vision, faces of those who had trusted him before me, silent screams pressed against the walls. The guide watched from the shadows, smiling, patient. He didn't rush. He didn't need to. He had done this countless times. He didn't take wallets or watches now. He took freedom, left me a shell of myself, a wanderer lost in the endless maze. I stumbled into a large chamber, walls stacked with thousands of skulls. And there, in the center, I saw him clearly. Pale, almost ghostly, uniform faded and tattered. He reached out a hand, not to hurt me, not violently, but to remind me I had no choice, that I belonged to the catacombs now. I screamed. My voice echoed endlessly. The tunnels twisted again. I ran, but every path I took led back to the same place. The whispers grew louder, urgent, almost pleading. Faces appeared in the walls, the skulls shifting, looking alive, and always, behind them, the guide, watching, waiting. I realize now the truth of the catacombs. They are alive, not the walls, not the bones, but the shadows that move between them, the spirit of the guide who takes and collects, who waits patiently for the next wanderer, the next fool who thinks they can explore. I write this now, somewhere deep beneath Paris. My flashlight is fading. My recorder is almost dead. I hear him in the distance, soft footsteps echoing off stone, watching for the next person who will trust the guide. And I will never leave. Because in the catacombs, the guide is eternal, and the guide always collects. If you ever find yourself beneath the streets of Paris, and you think you hear footsteps ahead of you, don't assume you're being rescued. Somewhere in the catacombs, something still wanders the tunnels, waiting for the curious, the reckless, the ones who believe they can find their own way back. And if a voice offers to guide you, don't follow it, because not everything down there steals your belongings. Some things steal your escape. If you enjoyed this story, make sure you're subscribed. New narrations are uploaded regularly, and if you have a story you think should never be told, leave it in the comments. I'll see you in the next one.